You know him as the coach who prays on the 50-yard line, but there's so much more to his story. Hi, I'm Peyton Luke, and this is First Liberty Live. Coach Joe Kennedy won a precedent-setting victory at the Supreme Court, and First Liberty was by his side from the beginning. Kelly Shackelford sat down with him at an event for an interview. He has quite the story, and we want to let you listen in.
So coming onto the field in Bremerton now is a coach with a win-loss record of 1-7.
1-7? Ouch! That's gonna leave a mark.
Yeah, but let me tell you about the one win that literally changed the rule book. Coach Joe Kennedy. Here's a guy who was a troubled youth, then a Marine combat veteran. He landed back in his blue-collar hometown, became a football coach back at his old high school.
You know, they say when he looked in his players' eyes, he knew exactly what they were going through because he'd been there.
True. Before he even took the job, he made a solemn commitment. After every game, he would thank God for the opportunity on the 50-yard line, right there on the field of battle, and that's what he did with no problem for years.
I can't imagine any school official throwing a flag on that.
Well, it was a late call, but they did, and ultimately, a single quiet prayer by himself on the 50 got him fired.
And that's when First Liberty Institute came alongside Joe, grabbed the ball, and went to court to get his job back. It was a rough season leading up to the championship.
Coach Joe lost at the federal district court, lost at the appeals court, lost again at the appeals court. The Supreme Court turned it down and sent it back down.
I'd call that a loss.
Then he lost at the district court again, and lost at the appeals court again, lost again at the appeals court.
So after 7 brutal years, Coach Kennedy had a heartbreaking 0-7 record.
But then it came down to the national championship. The Supreme Court accepted his case. Years of commitment, sweat, and tears came down to this one final effort. And it wasn't even close. Coach Joe Kennedy won a precedent-setting 6-3 victory.
That one win set a new standard of religious freedom for millions of coaches and teachers.
And to people who care about religious freedom, that one final victory makes Joe Kennedy the winningest coach in America.
I see you, Joe Kennedy. I see you.
All right, so start out with growing up, because I know your childhood, people probably think you're a regular guy. You know, you had a mom and a dad that were building you up and making you a Marine and this great football guy, but it really wasn't like that. Describe for people what your childhood was like.
When I was growing up, my parents were really good Catholic family, and just like any Catholic family, you have to have a lot of kids. It's kind of like the Mormons. You got to have a lot. It's a thing. Well, they couldn't have kids, and they started adopting. They adopted a girl, then a year later, they adopted me. Well, through the miracle of science or God, however you want to look at it, they started breeding like crazy, and they had 7 kids. And they didn't need my sister or myself anymore, so they kind of pushed us off to the side. We really derailed, both of us. I was in and out of group homes and foster homes, boys' home. So it was, sometimes I was completely homeless and, breaking into churches and places like that to have a place to sleep that was dry, which churches are very scary at night when you're a kid. So I don't recommend anybody doing that. So, it was kind of rough, but it's exactly what I needed and helped me become a better coach, because I understand these guys. There is nothing that my team, anyone on my team, is going through that either I haven't experienced or seen, especially at some of those group homes and foster homes. You think that you're going to go to this wonderful foster family, but some of them are just as bad as any state-run penitentiary. They're absolutely terrible. So I got to see the horrors of growing up for some people, and people should never have to go through that. So I was there for the kids, and I could fully understand what they were going through, and we had that bond between us because they could come to me and with any problem, and I was fully understanding.
So tell me then from there, you go into the Marines, and how did you enter the Marines, and how did you exit the Marines as far as who you were, and how did that affect your life?
When I was 17, I wanted to join the service. I wanted to find out what I was capable of. Everybody told me from, I don't know, 4th grade, I remember the nuns at Star of the Sea, which is a Catholic school. They told me that I would never amount to anything and that I didn't contribute to society, and I would always be that kid that was always in trouble and was going to fail in life. And that bothered me, and I didn't want to be defined by what my past was. And so many people could go back and say, wow, I was so hurt when I was a kid, and they never get over it. Well, I wanted to get over it. I wanted to find out what I was made of. Am I worthless, or am I capable of doing something? So I signed up in the Marine Corps, and I thought I was just going to do it for 4 years. I found my calling. Imagine that, somebody who likes to fight. Fought when I was a kid. Now I'm fighting for the Constitution and everybody's rights. And I was a martial arts instructor, swim instructor. My job was to train other Marines to be better Marines. And I really took it seriously, and I loved it. I found my calling at that time.
So you get out of the Marines, and really your life started to change. I guess before you get to the decision to coach, there's a young lady who is a part of your life. Now, this goes back to when you guys were like, I don't know, 7? 9? So tell the story, because, by the way, Coach now has a movie deal, and this will be a part of the movie deal, that is he and his wife. So you might as well tell them a little bit about your love story of you and your wife.
Okay, so my brother, we went to the same school. It was my foster brother. We went to the same school until I got expelled, and so I wasn't in the same school. Well, he gets off the bus. I'm waiting for him because I'm not in school, and he says, "Oh my gosh, there's this new girl that lives in down the street from us. She's so beautiful. I sat by her on the bus," and I was like, well, "Let's go check her out," right? So me being the shy one, we ride our bikes down there, and I just walked right up to her front porch, and she's sitting out there playing in the dirt, doing something, playing with a doll or something. And I walked right up to her, and she's down on the stoop of the porch, and I'm standing there, and she looks up, and some of you heard this before, but no, she had the long hair and the bangs. She brushes it out of her eyes in slow motion. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God. And I'm speechless. My jaw's hanging there like some stupid cartoon. And she looks at me and she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I want to marry you."
At age 9?
We were both 9.
Yeah.
And she politely, not so politely, said, "You're creepy," and went in the house. So I pursued, well, after that, my brother and I, he said, did you tell her I liked her? And I said, no, I told her I'm going to marry her. And he said, well, I was going to marry her. We got in our first fist fight. And I beat the tar out of him. I was serious about marrying this girl. And then 31 years later, after I got out, right about when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I married that lady.
And so tell me about how, though, I know your spiritual journey, certainly she was a key part of that. How did that happen, and how did you sort of change to be a guy that would even be willing to stand for your faith?
I was a heathen for 20 years. I had no faith. I didn't believe in anything. And my belief was spending as much money as I could, living a good life, drinking as much as I could, womenizing, the whole 9 yards, everything a Marine would do, getting in fights everywhere. That was my life. So all of a sudden, I have to stop that practice, not just stop because I'm out of the military, now I'm going to be a civilian, but I fell in love with Denise again. First time I saw her, and immediately, I was like, I'm going to marry you still. And we got married. We didn't even think about it. It was like, I want to marry her. I was like, what are you doing next Thursday? And she's like, why? And I said, we should get married that day. She goes, that's not a very romantic proposal. And I said, she goes, what's a hurry? And I was like, I don't want you to change your mind. And she was a good Christian girl. She grew up in the church. She did everything right. So when we got married, it was she has a couple barriers that she puts up. And I didn't know how to break them. First of all, I wasn't going to church. And every Sunday, she was very polite, say, hey, you want to go to church with me? And I'm like, nope. I'm going to watch a football game. I'm going to work on the truck. I'm going to do anything but go sit in some boring church. Well, my kid, finally, after, 6 months, my son said, well, if he doesn't have to go to church, do I have to go to church? Yeah, that's where it hit me. And I was like, man, I'm being a bad example for my children. I said, hold on, I'll go with you. So I went to church, and I sat there very defiant. You know, when you go to church and you're not a believer, you're like, this guy's full of it. Only thing he wants is my money. And I have, every right to be mad in my own mind. Well, I don't know, about a year into our marriage, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm winging it, and I'm failing miserably. And I don't know what else to do. And I feel like I'm going to lose a woman I love, and I have no idea how to fix it. So I was at church, and then, I wasn't intending on believing anything about God, but they started playing some song, and, certain songs would just hit you. It's amazing what the media can do for you. This song came on, and I don't know where it came from. My chest started tightening up. I thought I was having a heart attack, and I ran up to the altar. Well, not in the center, because that would have been too much attention. I went way off to the side, and I just fell and just started crying. First time I've cried. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. What is this stuff coming out of my face? Marines don't cry. Are you kidding me? So I'm sitting there, and I said, God, if you help me with my wife, I will dedicate the rest of my life to you. I don't care what it takes. Use me in any way. I want my wife. I want our marriage. She saw what I did and saw that I was vulnerable for the first time. Big, tough Marine bawling his eyes out over there. Yeah, she comes up alongside me. We sat there and cried, and I accepted the Lord. Man, he's my Savior now, and that's how I really got into it.
So then that brings us to, you've got a job at the shipyard, but then they ask you, they say, we'd like you to come help coach a football team. You're not an X and O's guy, but you're a leadership guy, and you certainly know kids and what they go through. And that was new to you, and you had a decision to make. So what happened in that process that kind of led to this lawsuit?
Well, that everything in life is a giant coincidence. God has nothing to do with any of those. I was out on a run across the bridges in my hometown, and a guy pulls up alongside me who coincidentally was the athletic director. I just happened to be wearing a Bremerton shirt that day. And he stopped me, we chatted it up, and like he said, he offered me the job. Well, he pursued me for, I just started at the shipyard, so I couldn't take the job. You can't go into a brand new job for the government and say, make all these demands. Oh yeah, I need Fridays off. I need to be off at work at 3, and also I need Mondays off. You can't do that when you're first starting a job. So it took God a year to figure out my job situation. Got that figured out, and this guy kept pursuing me. He kept bugging my wife every day. Every week she said, George was asking about you. He wants to know if you could coach. The guy just knew something, and he saw something in me that the football team needed. And I finally, after, it was into my second year of working at the shipyard, I finally said, fine, I'll go. I'll do an interview. I did the interview on a Friday, and they offered me the job. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this is for real now. Well, give me the weekend to think about it. I want to go home and, like any good, 2-week-old Christian, I'm going to pray about it, right? So I did. I prayed about it, talked it over with my wife, because she was working for the school district. I was telling my table over here that we had 3 kids. 2 of them were in the high school, 1 in the middle school. And living with a Marine might not be the funnest and easiest thing to do. So I had to talk to my kids about it, about me being a presence in their school too. I think they went to school to get away from me most days. So here I'm going to be there. And I was sitting there, I was really conflicted. I just served 20 years. Do I really want to start something else that is going to take over my life again? And I was flipping through the channels about midnight, and Facing the Giants came on. Yeah, I'm sitting there going, I got 900 channels. There's nothing but crap on them, and then this movie pops up. Coincidence, right? And how many of you have seen Facing the Giants, right? What do you think their budget was? About $27? I mean, the acting wasn't good. They didn't have a big, cast. I think you could do better with iPhones now. But let me tell you, that movie hit me just as hard when I fell to my knees. This was God reaching through the TV set, through the Kendrick brothers, punching me in the gut. I'm falling on my knees. I can't breathe at all. And I'm sobbing. I'm like, God, I hear you. I'm in. You can't get a clearer picture than that, in the middle of the night. And so I was like, God, I'm all in. And my commitment to you will be just like in the movie. I'm not a very creative guy. I stole it from them. I will give you the glory after every game, win or lose, and I'm going to do it right there on the battlefield. And that's how all of this really just started.
So for 7 years, you do that. After the game is over, people are making reservations at their restaurant. You go to a knee. First thing you do is go to a knee. And then somebody complimented your superintendent about it's neat what one of your coaches does. And that started the investigation. And then they told you you couldn't do it anymore. And so tell us about that process and what that was like and what you went through, especially because your wife is also the head of HR.
Oh, yeah, by the way.
Does it sound like a movie?
Yeah, where's that Patriot Mobile HR lady? I love her. There she is, over there. She understood if you were HR, I don't have a lot of marital advice. Trust me, I don't. Do not sue your wife, guys. You will have some intense fellowship over the time that you're suing her. So this wasn't an easy thing. My wife could not understand why I was doing what I was doing. And I could have explained. I'm like, I'm just doing what I promised God I would do. God called me to be a coach. What else am I going to do? And so it almost ruined our marriage. We almost got divorced over this. And, just let me take a second on that is, because there's all these coincidences in life. My wife and I were in this really big fight. It's probably, 8 months into this going on with the school district. I'm on suspension and all this stuff's going, and every media outlet's reporting on us. We have no life anymore. And my wife is sitting there crying on the bed, and we're fighting over, and I can't explain it. Why am I doing this? She goes, just tell me why you have to do this. She took it personally. She feels like she's a bad wife because she's not supporting me. She feels like she's a bad HR person because she has to fire me. I mean, that's not good. And, she feels like she's a bad Christian because she's mad at God for putting us through this. So she's bawling on the bed, and I'm sitting there, I don't know what else to do. I'm hurting the girl that I have loved since I was a kid. I had no idea what to do. And so I was like, I just got to get out of here. I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. I just was going to go out to my car and just drive somewhere. I had no idea. I had no plan. I just knew I had to get out of there. And I didn't know if I was going to come back because I hated seeing what I was doing to my wife. And as I'm walking out the room, I get a text message. And let me tell you, when you're really annoyed, the last thing you want to hear is your phone. And I pull it out, and it's man, thanks. This sucks sometimes. It's a video message from the Kendrick brothers. Right at that moment when I'm leaving, and I fell down the stairs. First couple steps, I fall down the stairs. I grab the railing and break it. It falls down. My wife comes running out to see what's going on, and she's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm holding my phone, and I hand it to her, and she goes, "Do you want me to call 911?" And I can't talk because I'm like, "Bleh." She doesn't know if I'm stroking out or what. And I'm pointing at the phone, and so she played it, and we sat there and bawled our eyes out. It was an encouragement video from the Kendrick brothers. He was standing on the field where they did, facing the Giants, right at the moment when I was leaving. So God fixed us in the exact moment when we needed him most. So this was not an easy thing for me. This was a very hard thing to go through, especially for my family.
Yeah. So let's talk about, all right, so I just want a couple of things, people to know a couple of things I thought were major. We'll see if they're in the movie. One of them was when you first really thought they're going to fire me. And that day after the game, you decided you didn't want the kids to get in trouble by coming near you. So you waited until they sang the fight song and turned to face the crowd, and you went by yourself. And as you were down there, you felt like, oh no, I think I feel and smell the kids. And
definitely, you know the smell of football players.
But tell everybody what happened when you opened your eyes.
And it was a big thing that everybody was watching to see if I would pray or not. And I made the conscious decision, I just don't want to get anybody in trouble. I want to just coach football. I don't want this to be a big thing. So I waited till, like you said, my last guy peeled off to go do our fight song right after the game, and I'm like, here's my chance. I ran over there to the 50, and I took a knee, and it couldn't have been more than 5 seconds I was into the prayer, and I'm, like you said, I am surrounded. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, these guys smell so bad. I hope this isn't my team. And so when I stood up, I didn't recognize a single face. I have about 100 kids and the community standing around me. It was the opposing team.
So you think that'll make the movie with, he's being challenged, he decides to go to a knee, and the other team sees all this in the newspaper that he's maybe going to be fired for expressing his First Amendment rights. And so they decide, we're going to stand with him because we're Americans and we stand for the First Amendment. And the coaches, the players, all of them surrounded him.
Which is funny, yeah. Which is funny because if you look at all the pictures in that the school district used against me, that was the number one picture that they used against me was that. Look, he's praying with the kids. I'm like, they're not mine. What do you tell other kids? No,
one other thing, that's a story that we'll see if it makes it, but the day that we all knew you were going to be fired, that game, we're thinking there's going to be a major press conference after this. And we're thinking, Coach Kennedy is not a sympathetic guy. He's more like, your arm is broken, put some dirt on it and get back in the game, right? And we're like, Lord, can you soften him up? Can you do something for this guy before the press conference? And that night, you go to a knee, you know it's it, you're walking around the corner to the press conference. What happens on your way to the press conference?
Yeah, that really sucked. Yeah, I hate when these guys pray because your prayers do some amazing things. I'm walking and I'm pretty defiant. I'm looking for my football team. This is going to be that was our homecoming game. I was looking forward to my guys coming over, and we knew we were going to do the press conference. And I was like, I'm going to call my captain over, who was he was the quarterback for the team, and we had it planned where he was going to come with me to the thing, and he was going to ask his girlfriend on national TV to the prom. This is what I'm thinking. I'm going to make this a good spectacle and make it something for my kids. They get to be the ones to shine. Well, as I'm walking over there, I feel this tap on my shoulder. Well, the attorneys were escorting me. It was like Secret Service getting me off the field. And on the way out, I feel this tap, and I turn around, and for a split second, I'm looking just like a ghost, in front of me. When I was at the boys' home, I had this guy named Terry Fike who sowed every bit of every religious knowledge he had into me. He just, didn't matter what it was. He argued with me, he loved me, he always accepted me, and finally planted enough seeds where I thought, maybe there might be something to this whole God thing. And I turn around, and I haven't seen this guy in, what was I, 13 when that happened? So
30 years.
30 years I haven't seen this guy. I turn around and I'm looking at Terry. He drove 6.5 hours across the state to see me at the game. I just looked at him, and he just, that big old Terry smile. He hugs me, gave me that "I'm proud of you" look, and he turned around and walked off. Didn't say a single word. And I lost it. I was blubbering in his arms like an idiot. And yeah, I went over there right to the cameras, and I'm like, Terry.
God made him vulnerable at the right time for the media.
Horrible, horrible.
All right, let's talk about the case. So obviously you did, I mean, who knew you'd have been at the Supreme Court? But, I mean, two things. First, this was hard. 7 years. I mean, you and Denise were struggling, not just in your marriage, but I mean, financially it's difficult. It's a long time. It's a lot of tension. It's a lot of difficulty. Speak a little bit about that. And then also, I remember as we got close, you were like, this case is going to have my name on it. What if it's bad? So talk a little bit about what you went through.
Yeah, so it was hugely rough on my family. When you saw the Kleins, Melissa and her husband, 6,000 emails. I'm like, I wish I only got 6,000 emails. We got death threats every single week. You get these keyboard commanders that are really tough on the computer, and they write all this nasty stuff. Every time I had a death threat, I was like, well, it's me for lunch. Yeah, they weren't so tough then. But but it was amazing how many people were actually on our side. And you just ignore the idiots that are out there, because I'm not an idiot whisperer. I can't change people's minds. I will have a discussion with them, but if they don't want to listen, I'm not going to waste my time on them. I actually learned something from the lawyers who said quit. I would sit up till 3 o'clock in the morning arguing with people online every single night, going, that's not what I was doing. This is not what it was about. They're closed-minded people. So this was really tough. My wife was getting it also at home and at work. They were getting death threats at the school district. They had cops posted out there every day at the school district. And imagine the phone calls that they got and the emails and the faxes. We shut down their system for a while there. They couldn't even function. Their whole entire system was down because millions of Americans were outraged over this. So that was the part that really, helped me keep going in that was that and you guys helping me with that. I never would have been able to do any of this without First Liberty guys. These guys are amazing. What else was I saying?
And Lisa.
Lisa.
We have somebody on staff that her whole job is to care for our clients who go through all this. Where's Lisa? She's
right there.
down here. Right, there's Lisa right there.
Everybody clap for Lisa, embarrass her. You're welcome, Dave.
So all right, so talk about the experience at the Supreme Court. I mean, the kind of what you went through there at the very end. I mean, your name on the case, what happened?
This whole thing was so just weird. I'm a high school football coach from Bremerton. I mean, I was taking a knee for 15 seconds. This is not Supreme Court or newsworthy stuff. If I just walked across the stage and stopped and tied my shoe for a second, nobody would think of it. That's what it looked like. So I never understood why this was going to the Supreme Court. I had no idea. This is just so bizarre that God would use this. And my biggest fear was losing. It wasn't winning. I didn't care about that. I was thinking the impact. What if I lost this case? Forever would they be sitting there going, well, in Kennedy versus Bremerton, it clearly shows that there's a separation of church and state at the school level. It would have shut down all religious things in the public square. Think about that. Every government employee, every city employee, state employees. This was going to be the hugest thing in the world if we lost. And they were all pointed at me for the next 100 or 1,000 years, however long we're going to be here. They would always point at that. So I was terrified of that. That was my biggest fear. And I was like, why am I taking this on? I just want to coach football and take a minute to thank God for it. I don't want to go to the Supreme Court. These guys are like, no, this is Supreme Court material. Yeah. Oh, remember when they said that above a 90% rate? Well, for the past 7 years, they were about 90% because I was the other 10% of not winning. So now they got their stats up. So,
well, all right. So you ended up with this victory. That's, I mean, you'll go back to coach. You can go back to Bremerton.
Will I?
Yes. You will get the right to go back and coach and to go back and pray on the field. But beyond that, most people, that's what they know. As I said, most people don't know what happened in the decision and how huge. This is the biggest case in 70 years. What do you think about that and your name being on that for the next 50 years as people cite to it?
Yeah, that's just weird. It was so great. I was sitting out in the foyer or whatever it is. Me and Lisa are sitting there, and she's keeping an eye on me so I don't do anything stupid. And I'm sitting there, and people are walking by, and they're like, I'm just the average Joe, I mean, people walk by me and like, oh, hey, how you doing? I'm trying to make small talk with people, and they're walking by going, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. I got there's my friend. There's somebody important over there. And it's nice because nobody recognizes me, and I'm really just the average schmuck. So and this is just me, It's so weird. They're talking about books and movies, and they're going to play Kelly. I think Ed Harris wants to play you.
I want Matthew McConaughey.
No.
I hear they're trying to get Mark Wahlberg for you, so
Yeah, they're spinning it all around. But it's so weird, and I'm just looking forward to the day where I could just go back to being a coach and taking a knee, thanking God, and all this other nonsense will just fade off into the future. And it will just be one of like I said, a boring court case. It will be some piece of paper. Nobody will know who Kennedy is, but at least the case will affect people in the future.
Well, I know everybody all over the country is so thankful that you stood your ground, that you had that Marine background, which made you realize, I can't give up on these freedoms. And you knew the kids were watching you, and you did that. And the result of your being faithful for them has benefited 350 million people in the United States. So thank you.
Oh, get out of here.
First Liberty has other cases that are pending at the Supreme Court and that could set precedents for religious liberty across the nation. If you would like to be a part of that journey, you can go to firstlibertylive.com and click the big red Give button. First Liberty is your last line of defense and your greatest hope for victory.